If there's ever a video that's gonna get me canceled, it might be this one. No one wants politicians to open offshore bank accounts. But fortunately, this will probably be my least viewed video since there's only so many people in the world that are politically exposed to begin with. So if you are here watching, thanks and welcome to the channel. Quick intro, my name is Chris. I'm the head of banking relationships at GlobalBanks, and we help individuals and businesses solve problems with cross-border banking and financial services. And yes, this does include helping PEPs navigate their banking options. So let's jump straight into it. PEPs, or politically exposed persons, are super high risk from a banking perspective because they run a higher risk of money laundering, embezzlement, corruption, bribery scandals, etc., etc., etc. But PEPs aren't just government officials, though they are definitely in the highest risk category along with senior military personnel. But basically anyone in senior government roles, whether elected or appointed, along with all of their immediate family members and close associates, they're all considered PEPs. And believe it or not, I ran into this personally when opening an account in Hong Kong over a decade ago. A mayor in some small town had the same name as my father, so the banker needed me to prove that my father wasn't that person, and that I, by extension, was not a PEP. Now, I don't know how many small town mayors are trying to open bank accounts in Hong Kong, and the extra paperwork that I had to provide was minimal when compared to what an actual PEP has to go through. But here's the point. No matter what kind of PEP you are, or whether you're directly employed in public service or next of kin of someone in public service, you can still open bank accounts, international accounts, offshore accounts, even investment accounts, whatever you want. And to do so, you just need to complete 3 steps. First, you need to pick the right banks. This is by far the most important step because the vast majority of banks will not accept PEPs, which you probably already know if you are one. And of the banks that do accept PEPs, they typically have restrictions on who they're willing to consider. Basically, there's a big difference between an honorary consul and a general in the army, or the son of a former president versus the son of a former bureaucrat. But again, in all of these cases, there are still banking options available. Now, the second step that PEPs need to complete in order to open offshore accounts is to clearly explain their reason for opening the account in the first place. If you're politically exposed and you just want to bank outside of your home country with no real reason for doing so, you're probably going to get some weird looks from bankers. But if you live outside of your home country, maybe your work requires you to live abroad, and you do a lot of traveling, then having an account in a stable third country, it can make a lot of sense. Basically, you need a reason for opening. This is the same for most people, but it's significantly more important when dealing with PEPs because of the increased risk associated with banking them. And the third step is to have a realistic outlook on the process and what's going to be expected of you. What I mean by this is that opening international bank accounts after holding a government office or working in the government, it isn't easy. And in a lot of cases, banks are going to charge you extra fees for even going through the application process. Now, how much will be charged? That's going to depend on the bank and how high risk you are in terms of political exposure. But this could range from a few $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars. Again, it just depends on the bank and your profile. Also, the bank may charge you an annual compliance fee depending on your risk, your political status, and where you end up banking. Plus, they'll probably ask you for a high minimum deposit to make all of this worth their time in the first place. These extra fees and higher deposit requests are the result of how much more involved it is to bank someone with political exposure from a compliance perspective. Basically, banks are going to run you through every compliance database available. They're going to dig deep into publicly available information, and they're going to make sure that the money you're bringing over has zero risk of being associated with corruption, money laundering, or any kind of wrongdoing. Because if they don't do this and they miss something, they'll probably end up getting fined for bringing you on as a client, not to mention getting slammed in the media. So you should be prepared for enhanced due diligence, EDD, and be ready to hand over a lot of paperwork to help put the compliance team's concerns to rest. Now, there's another bonus step that you can take to make banks like you even more if you're a PEP, though it's not entirely necessary, but if you do this, it can increase your chances of opening, or at least motivate your banker to help you through the process. And that is committing to investing through the bank. Basically, if you're planning on opening an account with an international bank and you're looking to maintain a balance, you can commit all or a portion of that amount to be invested through the bank. That way the bank has a clearer picture of how they'll actually profit from your banking relationship, though this usually only works if you're bringing over a mid-6-figure or 7-figure deposit, which as a PEP might raise a few extra eyebrows and result in even more paperwork. Okay, now in terms of where you can open these sorts of accounts offshore, it's a lot more nuanced than other client profiles because there's a lot of geographic considerations that come into play. African PEPs versus Asian PEPs, Latin American PEPs versus Caribbean PEPs, and the hardest PEPs of all, Americans. But generally speaking, you're going to be looking at premier and private banking hubs, since those are the places where banks can be a bit more flexible and they'll be used to reviewing more complex client profiles like PEPs. And as a quick pro tip here, you should be looking at jurisdictions with a history of supporting clients from your home country. That way they'll already be comfortable with the baseline risks of banking you as a foreign non-resident, and they should already have tools in place to verify identity documents like your passport from your country of citizenship. So if you're looking to open a bank account and you are politically exposed, I hope this video helps you get started. Don't forget, follow these 3 steps and be ready to hand over a lot of papers. And if you do want to start thinking through the jurisdictions, you can click here and I'll tell you 5 of the best offshore banking hubs that are available right now, including a few that actually can be accessed by PEPs. So go ahead, click that, and I'll see you over there.